Hey everyone, Ryan here, Ryhno back with another update. This time we're going to talk about the July race round. It was finally my first full race weekend on the R6, so that's exciting. And again, I apologize, this was a bit delayed. Things got even crazier after that race weekend. I've had weddings, just got back from pit race where I was crewing for a good friend of mine. Had a lot of coaching and track days in there, so things have been nuts. Finally got a second to breathe here right before my next race round. But I wanted to put together an update because I really want to talk about this race weekend. It was a crazy race weekend, but spoiler alert, things went really well. So I'm really happy to share how things went with all of you. But the practice day started out a bit rough, I'm just going to say, because they decided to put the BRL racers in with us in the expert class, which made for some issues with traffic. There's no other real way to say it. There was a lot of speed disparities and even just consistency. With all the traffic out there, I told myself if I could get down into sub 15s even at Blackhawk, like 1:15 lap time, I'd be fine with that. I did some 14s, which was fine, given, again, the amount of traffic that we had. At lunch, they actually decided to split us out and they gave BRL their own group, which I think was definitely the right call because it was becoming a safety issue. You know, we had people running around the same lap times as us, maybe a second or two off, and then going all the way up to, I'd say, probably 130s. Started out a little rough, but things got cleared up. So I felt pretty good going into Saturday. Now, the first major change I had for Saturday was Team Challenge. Now, I was planning to do Team Challenge originally. Then I got the opportunity to actually ride for a team. What they actually wanted to do is have me enter in and then just ride under their team name so that their team could collect points, which ended up working out really well. I thought it was a neat opportunity. And I knew my buddy Chuck was also planning to do Team Challenge. So I told him, Chuck, why don't we just do it together? You know, it saves money for both of us if we do it together, and you know, I get a chance to ride his bike because we decided to use his since he had actually already signed up when I talked to him, and I just thought it'd be easier that way. And I'm still getting used to the R6, so I thought it'd be better to just ride his bike, which he was happy to do. And I will say the ZX6 is a lot different than the R6, even though I'm still getting used to the R6. Definitely could tell a big difference there. And ergonomically, Chuck has his bike set up a lot differently than how I would set mine up. It was a bit more narrow, a bit more compact than I'm used to, so definitely took some learning. You know, I only felt comfortable doing so much on the bike. But what we decided, since I had signed up for additional sprint races on Saturday after Team Challenge and Chuck hadn't, I would take the middle stint. Chuck was going to take the beginning and the ending stint, which are obviously going to be longer. So I ended up only doing about 31 laps and Chuck did basically double that. So Chuck started out strong, got us in a good position. We were battling for first in class. We were like second or third overall. Chuck was laying down some consistent 12s and 13s. After riding the bike briefly at the end of the day Friday, I told myself if I could even just get like around the 16, 17 mark, but consistently, I'd be okay with that. So I went out and that's exactly what I did. So I was happy for that. Again, I was struggling with some of the things on the bike ergonomically. Chuck's setup is a lot different than mine. You know, like the reach to his clutch is a little bit longer, and to the shifter because he has larger feet, larger hands. So the reach was a little bit off for me. So whenever I had to reach to downshift, I would have to roll and then reach and pull. So I was trying to minimize how much I'd need to downshift. So for instance, on the front straight at Blackhawk, I was only going up into fourth instead of fifth, just because I was trying to conserve energy, because I could tell I was getting tired from having to do these extra inputs. And again, the ergos were a lot more compact than I'm used to, so I was trying not to cramp. But I made it through the stint. Chuck finished things out for us. Long story short is we actually ended up winning the class, so that was really cool. My first, I'm going to say, like real podium in team challenge that I can recall, because I've only done it a couple times. It happened to be on my first time on a middleweight, first time on a ZX6, so a lot of firsts. Now, I felt good overall for the 3 sprints that I had after Team Challenge, but I could tell I was a bit fatigued, just again from the body position I had to hold during the race. So I told myself, you know, I don't think I'm going to be able to beat my best times from the previous round, which was a low 13, like a 13.1, I believe. But if I can just get some consistency and just get through the rest of the day, I knew after I had a good night's sleep and rested for Sunday, I was going to do better the next day. And I pretty much matched all that. I got a little quicker with each sprint as it went on after Team Challenge. Just double checking my notes here because obviously, like I said, it's been a little while since the races happened. Yeah, first race right after Team Challenge, best lap time was like a 1:13.9. Next race, my best lap was a 1:13.7. You know, those races I was kind of living in the 13s and 14s. And then the last race of the day on Saturday for me, which was middleweight superbike, did a 1:13.3, again, living in those 13s and 14s. So not where I want to be, but given the fact that I was tired from Team Challenge and I was pretty much living in the lap times I did in GTU back in June, which is my first full race weekend, well, first full day racing the bike. I only did 2 races that weekend. But pretty much matching those times, I was okay with that because I knew I was tired. And that just told me that once I get a good night's sleep and get some rest, there's potential for me to just shave off a lot more time and get quicker the next day. So moving on to Sunday, started things out with GTU and was feeling pretty good. I was running 5th overall during the race. And then my quick shifter cut out. So my auto blip was still working to downshift, but I couldn't upshift. And the longer the race went on, the more it was messing with me mentally. I was making a lot of mistakes. I ended up running that race. I clicked off a 13.1 during it, and I ended up around higher 13s, 14s, you know, with when the shifter started cutting out. I knew I wasn't going to set any personal bests dealing with that issue, and I didn't know how difficult that was going to be to fix. You know, on the surface, it seems like it should be easy, but since I don't know the R6 that well, if there's some weird electronic thing I had to replace, I wanted to give myself as much time as possible, so I ended up actually pulling in early from GTU. It was about, yeah, I did 12 laps. The race itself ended up being about 20, so I pulled in with about 8 laps to go, which I don't ever like to do, but again, I wanted to focus on those sprints to see what I can do and give myself the best opportunity. So I pulled in. We swapped out the shifter, the little shifter pill module. Big shout out to Wyatt and Joe over at Turn 1 for helping me out with that. They took care of that for me and helped me kind of diagnose that, and the bike worked well the rest of the day. Now I had 2 races after that, 2 sprints. So I had heavyweight superbike and heavyweight supersport. Was feeling really good. Now that I knew we got the shifting worked out, I was feeling better and more rested. So heavyweight superbike, what I'll first say is, I'm just backing up a little bit. The biggest thing I was struggling with in the June round, again, I know because I only did 2 races and I obviously have to practice it more, but my starts were bad. Really trying to figure out how to launch the bike, so I knew going into this weekend in July, if I could improve my starts and get tagged down with those faster guys that I want to be up there with, I think it could help pull me to some quicker lap times. So fast forward to heavyweight superbike, and my starts were getting better throughout the weekend. You know, the sprints on Saturday, again, even though I was tired, I could tell they were getting better. And I was starting to figure out, okay, this is how I need to feel and feed everything out with the clutch and the throttle to get my starts better than they were. So heavyweight superbike, I got a good start, and I believe I qualified during the weekend with, it was like a 12.8 I qualified on. So yeah, I guess quick note, during qualifying, I set a new PB, which was in the 12s, and that put me around 6th on the grid, give or take a spot or two depending on who was in the race. But I got a good start. Chuck and I launched kind of next to each other. Chuck got ahead of me, but I knew I got a lot better start because I was in like the top 5 spot versus previously I would end up back in 10th or so because my starts were so bad. So I got tagged on to Chuck. I was trying to see if I could find a way around, but Chuck started picking it up, and as the race went on, I just couldn't stick with him. He was picking up a couple tenths of me here or there, like a half, and then by the end of the race, he had a decent gap of me as he was trying to run down Schwag's, who was in, I believe he was in 3rd place. But either way, getting that tow from Chuck really helped because I set another new PB, so I broke into the 11s that race. I did an 11.9. Barely in the 11s, but I'll still take it. Good news was I knew after Heavyweight Superbike there were some easy things I could do to improve my times and my consistency, because during that heavyweight race, you know, my times just got progressively a little bit quicker, a little bit quicker, a little bit quicker by a tenth or two. And I felt like I could kind of live in those 12s and maybe click off another 11 if I was able to put things together in my last race, which was Heavyweight Supersport. The Heavyweight Supersport, I got an even better start. I ended up right behind Schwag, so I was in 3rd place. And then at the end of the first lap, Chuck came by both of us, and he outbroke us into 1. And honestly, I was just kind of watching when I first saw it. I was like, holy crap. And then I saw it was Chuck, and I was like, of course. Chuck does stuff like that. But I was kind of just maintaining and kind of figuring things out because I haven't raced with Chuck or Schwags really. I've watched them, but I've never been on track with them racing. So I was trying to kind of observe them and see what they were doing, see what their weak points were, what their strong points were. And I was able to get a good run out of the last turn, and I got by Schwags going into turn 1 on the next lap. So I was right behind Chuck. My plan was to follow him and see what kind of times you could get towed into, watch him a bit, see if I could make a move somewhere. Unfortunately, when he came out of the bus stop and did the flip left, what he told me was he landed a bit crossed up and the bike basically snapped on him, shot him off into the grass. He had a low speed crash basically because he ran out of real estate and went into the air fence, but he was able to remount and keep riding. What that meant was I ended up being by myself with Schwags behind me, chasing me, and now I was in 2nd, which at the time I wasn't really thinking about a lot, but I was also cognizant of the fact that, you know, this is my first full weekend on the R6 and I'm in a podium spot. Holy crap. I was trying to keep Schwags behind me, so I tried to put my head down and just be consistent and see if I could make up time here and there. I ended up running another new fast lap for me, so my new PB at Blackhawk is now like an 11.8. The cool thing for me was when I did that race, I felt like I was riding pretty sloppy. Even though I was trying to be consistent, I felt like I was making little mistakes in a lot of spots. So what that means is I can definitely see more time on the table, which is really exciting for me. I can definitely see that time. I'm gonna really try and see if I can get into some low 11s, maybe even click off a 10 at the last round. We'll see. But did my best to hold Schwags off, and I ended up finishing that race in 2nd, which, even thinking back on it now, was crazy to me. And I remember yelling and screaming in my helmet, and I could hear it in the GoPro on the cool down lap, because I was just so pumped, so relieved. And there was just like a huge wave of emotion. And I'm guessing it's a combination of the fact of like everything that happened last year with all the motors blowing up on me and being nervous, you know, about moving into the middleweight class. Like I was excited about it, but I knew I could probably do everything that I've been doing so far, but I didn't think it was going to come this quickly, or I will say like kind of this naturally so far with this progression, because this is my 3rd full day racing on the bike. I only got 2 races back in June. So this is really like my first full race weekend on the bike. So the fact that I was able to break in the 11s, I got my first expert podium in the middleweight class on the 600. It was just crazy. Like, I was full of emotion and, you know, celebrating on the cool down lap when I came in, everybody was pumped for me. You know, Natalie was there. I had a couple friends come down from Sheboygan. My brother-in-law and his wife were there. And I broke out my team shirts for them, so they were all in the team shirts. So I was just like, it was crazy. And I forgot I needed to go to tech, so like Natalie had to stop me so I went to tech. And when I pulled into tech and stopped, I was overcome with emotion. Like I just started tearing up. I was crying. I was just like yelling. And you know, I remember Schwags came up to me right at the end, and you know, he was all pumped for me and told me he was really proud of me and whatnot. And you know, he was like, "I'm so proud of you. I love you, bro." I was like, I told him I love you, bro, too. And I was super pumped. And I was like, I can't believe this just happened. And yeah, even thinking back to it now, I can just like, oh, I can feel it. And I think part of it was, even though I've only done, like I keep saying, a few races, you know, one full race weekend plus the other day in June on the bike. And I haven't felt like, oh, I belong, or I guess I belong as a middleweight racer. I look like a middleweight racer, whatever. I can't think of how to describe it, but I still don't necessarily feel like, oh, I truly am a middleweight racer, even though I am. But I definitely feel like I am more now, but it just feels weird with how quickly things have come. You know, are people like, are they seeing like, okay, he's a middleweight racer, that's his thing now. That's my thing, that's how I feel. But yeah, just coming back from that crazy wave of emotions. You know, I left tech, went back to the pit, and I shut the bike off. And again, I just was like, I put my head down, like I was crying again, I was freaking out. Natalie came running over to me and she was hugging me and she was smiling and she was laughing and she was crying, and it was crazy. And I know it probably sounds a bit ridiculous that, you know, why am I getting so emotional off of second place at a club race? And I don't know what to tell you. I did. You know, racing means a lot to me, and all the hard work that we put in, all the hardships and setbacks that I've had over the last couple of years or so, just trying to make things work and trying to get to MotoAmerica, which is the end goal. It's been tough. I've never given up on it. I've always just gonna put my head down and keep grinding it out, but obviously it's been tough. So to have that happen again so quickly and with everybody there that weekend was just, it was cool. It was overwhelming. You know, I don't know how else to really put it, but that's just the way it was. And, you know, I'll hold on to that feeling, you know, forever. Okay, sorry about that. Camera decided to cut out randomly. But we'll just sum things up by saying thank you for checking out the video. I really do appreciate it. I really enjoy sharing all this content with you guys and taking you on my journey through racing, and as I make that grind towards MotoAmerica, that grind to the grid. Some of you may have noticed in the titles that I'm doing for my videos. I was trying to come up with something catchy, and that just kept coming back to me. So again, please feel free to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos. It keeps motivating me to keep doing videos like this. Also, if you have any questions or comments, please give me any feedback. I'd love to know what you think. Anything you'd like to see, anything you have questions on, please let me know. Also, if you're interested in getting out on track for the first time or racing and you already do track days, please let me know. If you have any questions, always love helping people. It's one of the things I get the most joy out of in life, and if it's dealing with motorcycles, it's just icing on the cake to me. So please let me know. Or if you know someone, have them contact me. Again, so with that being said, thank you to all my sponsors and partners for their support. I could not do anything that I'm doing this season without you. And on that front, I will have a couple announcements hopefully coming up here as we get towards the end of the season. I am looking for potential sponsors and partners to work with me as I make that journey and that step towards MotoAmerica next season. So if you know of anyone who might be interested, or if you're interested, please let me know. And again, as always, thank you for checking everything out. Thank you for taking the time, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.